Hey friends, and welcome to a tour of my modular kicker 2-for-1 decks. Essentially, these are two decks, a Simic kicker deck led by Verazol the Split Current, and a Gruul kicker deck led by Hallar the Firefletcher, with both sharing an overlapping core of green cards. The decks are split into three sections: a green core made up of only mono green and colorless cards, a Verazol section with only blue and Simic cards, and a Hallar section with only red and Gruul cards. So to play either deck, you just shuffle together the Hallar or Verazol section with the green core, and you've got a full 100 card deck. And to divide the cards again, just remove the secondary color cards, and it's split once again. The green core forms the base of both decks. It features a ton of kicked spells, with lots of cool ramp spells, interaction with cards like Inscription of Abundance, and cool finishers like Myriad Construct. There's a lot of cross synergy between kicker and +1/+1 counters, especially with both of our commanders. So there's a counter sub-theme as well to ramp even more, draw even more cards, and put tons of counters on our commanders. There's also some cool utility lands in the deck, with my favorite being Throne of the Makindi, thematic kicker ramp in our deck. The rest of the core is more generic stuff like staple ramp cards like Sol Ring, card draw like Return of the Wild Speaker, and interaction, stuff that every good deck needs. Next we move on to the Simic section led by Verazol the Split Current. Verazol enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the total mana cost spent to cast it, including any commander attacks by the way, making it very resilient to removal. You could remove 2 +1/+1 counters to copy any kicked spells you cast. So every kicked spell in our deck can and will be doubled by Verazol on the battlefield. This leads to insane value, making the Simic deck basically a crazy good mid-range value deck that just overwhelms opponents. Blue brings a ton of sweet kicker support. Roost of Drakes makes tokens, Coralhelm Chronicler is great card selection, Thieving Skydiver steals Sol Rings and much more, Inscription of Insight is just stupid good, but the best of the best has to be Rite of Replication, which with Verazol lets us make 10 copies of the best creatures on the battlefield. Absolutely insane. The rest of the section has a bit more counter support and some generic cards thrown in, plus islands and Simic lands. Oh, and Twinning Staff is in here. Yes, it's a colorless card, so it breaks my original rule, but this lets us make an extra copy each time we activate Verazol, and it's ridiculous, so I just remember to put it in this section. Now, the Hallar section is the total opposite of Verazol, despite sharing a lot of the same cards. While Verazol wants to outvalue opponents, Hallar is basically a burn deck, essentially growing and burning all of your opponents each time you cast a kicked spell. Plus, they have trample, so winning with commander damage is surprisingly common. The biggest criteria for which red kicker spell I add to this section is not the card's own utility, but how little mana is required to cast it kicked. The cheaper, the better, since we ultimately just want to burn our opponents to death with Hallar. So while a bunch of these cards have pretty decent effects, lots of burn and removal, they're mostly there to just be cast for as little mana as possible. For the rest of the cards here, we got one all-star with Dictate of the Twin Gods, which doubles our Hallar damage, and a bunch of other generic good stuff, such as lands and whatnot. Also, Hallar has insane synergy with two cards from the green core, Keen Sense and Snake Umbra, because both of these draw cards whenever we deal damage to an opponent, but they don't specify combat damage, so they work with Hallar's burn ability. So every single time we burn with Hallar, we're drawing 3 cards, one for each opponent, with either Keen Sense or Snake Umbra. Just wanted to point it out, didn't really think about that when I was recording this. And that's it for my deck tour. I hope you enjoyed this look at my paper decks, and if you're interested in reading more about my modular kicker deck, seeing the deck list, or seeing Verazol in action, you can find all of that in the video description below. Thanks for watching, and until next time friends, see ya!